x plus 1 would be my second, and my third would be x plus 2. So you've got to pay attention in your problems to whether they mention even or odd. In those, you add 2 to represent the different ones. If it's just consecutive, you add 1. So let's try one of those. This one is the sum of the squares of 2 consecutive even integers is 724. Find the integers. The sum of the squares of 2 consecutive even integers is 724. Find the integers. Okay, first of all, you need to look and see how many numbers you're actually looking for. We're looking for how many in this one? 2. Okay, so I'm going to represent 2. X is going to be my first one. And then I've got to worry about whether I'm doing even, odd, or just plain old consecutive. Which am I doing in this problem? Even. So X is going to be my first even. So my next even is going to be X plus 2. X plus 2. So those are the things you're going to use. You don't worry about the fact that it talks about squaring them or anything else. Whatever you do with consecutive, you always start by saying what the first one is and what the second one is. You don't start doing what the problem says. Not yet. Okay, now we're going to set it up and do what the problem says. Okay, it tells us to do sum. So if it says sum, we're going to do what? Addition. Now some of your problems will say difference. Some will say product. And you do whatever that means. But this means we're going to be adding them. But we're not going to add them. We're going to add their squares. So if we want to add their squares, what would I put down? If I was going to do the square of this first one, I would put what? What would be the square of x? Just x squared. What would be the square of x plus 2? The expression x plus 2 squared. And we want that to be equal to 724. So let me move up here so we can see this. X squared plus x plus 2 squared equals to 724. So what we've got to do before we worry about how to solve that is we've got to get rid of those parentheses. We've got to actually square. So in order to square the x plus 2 squared, we have to do what? Use the FOIL method. So we're going to have x squared plus 2x plus 2x plus 4 all equal to 724. And if we combine our like terms, we'll have 2x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals to 724. What would we need to do next? Move the 724 over because you want to have it equal to 0. So we'll have 2x squared plus 4x minus 720 equals to 0. Now, before we worry about how big those numbers are, they are big, and they are going to stay big actually, but we can make them a little bit smaller. Can anybody think of something we could do to both sides of this equation that's legal? Factor out a 2 or actually just divide both sides by 2. You can always divide both sides of an equation by the same number without changing the value of anything. So that's what we're going to do. It gives you the same answers. So we're going to have x squared plus 2x minus 360 equals to 0. That's going to be our equation. X squared plus 2x minus 360 equals to 0. Now, normally we'd want to factor that, but that would be pretty challenging to factor. To break down 360 would take us a long time. So what's our other choice? To use the quadratic formula. So let's do the quadratic formula. You're going to get lots of practice with your quadratic formula, so hopefully everybody will get better with it. X squared plus 2x minus 360 equals to 0. So the quadratic formula is the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So in this case, our a is going to be, what's a going to be in the quadratic formula? 1. Our b will be 2, and our c will be negative 360. So let's plug those into the formula. It's going to be the opposite of 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 360. And all that's over 2 times 1. Now I'm going to let y'all work out, or let you work out the inside of this for me. What will we get when we work out the inside of that? 1,444. All over 2. Because what happens is you get a 4 plus 1440 under there. You count your negatives here, and there are 2 of them. So that's going to make it plus the 1440. And then the 4 plus the 1440 will be our 1444 over 2. Now, this should come out to be a perfect square. If that's not a perfect square, we messed up. Because we're looking for consecutive integers, consecutive even integers, and it's got to be an integer. So what is the square root of 38? So we end up with negative 2 plus or minus 38 over 2. Or if we work out the 2 pieces of that, one piece would be negative 2 plus 38 over 2. And the other piece would be negative 2 minus 38 over 2. So we get 36 over 2, which would give us 18. And negative 40 over 2, which would give us negative 20. Now, you look at this carefully. 18 and negative 20 are not consecutive even integers. 18 is a positive number. Negative 20 is a negative number, so they're certainly not consecutive integers. But what they are, each one is the first one of the consecutive ones. In other words, I've erased up here how we set things up, but x was our first one, and x plus 2 was our second one. So, if 18 is our first even integer, what's the next one? X plus 2, or 18 plus 2, are 20. So 18 and 20 would be one pair of consecutive even integers that the sum of the squares would be 724. Then over here, we get another pair. When we get negative 20, the other number that goes with negative 20 is going to be negative 20 plus 2, which would be negative 18. So negative 20 and negative 18 would be another pair of consecutive even integers. Now, if our problem had said the sum of the squares of 2 positive consecutive even integers, then we would have wanted the 18 and 20. If it had said the sum of the squares of 2 consecutive negative even integers, we'd wanted the negative 20 and the negative 18. Since it doesn't specify, you want both answers, both pairs. So you really get 2 pairs of answers. So when you're doing these problems, that when you're assigning a variables where you have like an x and an x plus 2, what you get from your quadratic formula or from your factoring will always be just your first one. Your second one will come from doing something to that first one, adding 2 or adding 1. Now, these are real easy to check, and that's something you might want to do if you don't feel comfortable with it, is just see if the sum of the squares gives us 724. If we took, let's take the negative ones. If we took those negative numbers, squared them, and added them together, we should get 724. So if we take negative 20 and square it, and take negative 18 and square it, what we want to get is 724. Let's see if we do that.